Hello everyone, this is www.desktopsupport.tv presents HP Service Manager Web Services Part 2. In this movie we're going to be creating the consuming JavaScript. Part 1 was converting the WSDL to the primary JavaScript object. Just a quick tip I forgot to mention in the first movie in this series. If the conversion from the WSDL to the JavaScript failed, it may be that your network requires the proxy information. So in this case, what you're going to do is you're going to modify your SMI and I and add the two parameters you see here on the screen. Put them in your SMI and I and restart Service Manager. Then go into your Windows client and try the import of the WSDL again. That should you should be fine. Now, as a secondary tip, you can, if you're not sure what these values are, check your browser, and you can get the post and the host port from your browser. Okay, to see our weather web service work, we're going to create a separate JavaScript that's going to call those functions within the WSDL generated JavaScript. We don't want to make any changes to the WSDL generated JavaScript because we don't want to corrupt the original functionality at all. Okay, so in calling the JavaScript, when you're creating a new JavaScript file to call the functions, there's a few parts that are necessary to fulfill successful call to the web service. First of all, create the service object, then create a request object, fill the request object with the request definition, then we need to invoke the service object and pass in the request object. Then we can return either the response object, an instance of the response object, or a specific value of that instance. And then we do error handling. So anyone who does programming is probably familiar with try, throw, catch, but you'll see an example of that in my script. Okay, so let's get to it. Here's our JavaScript that we're going to create, which I've already created. But before we take a look at that, I just want to show you an open source tool named SOAP UI that allows us to retrieve WSDLs and displays a much easier to comprehend structure. It shows us the operations and the available requests for each of those operations. Here we can see I've imported the weather WSDL, and we have three operations: get city forecast by zip, get city weather by zip, get weather information. We can expand one of these operations and we see the request. A nice simple XML structure, requires only a zip code in this case for this request. Let's go back and look through a browser at the WSDL, and it's a big mess of miscellaneous elements that's hard to decipher, and that would be hard to redefine in our JavaScript that we're building. So SOAP UI is a great tool for helping to design the JavaScript. So let's go ahead and enter a zip code. We'll enter 44144. Which is Cleveland. We'll click Run to submit the request. This invokes the service, returns the values, gives us the weather for Cleveland. So for that zip code, returns the city name, the state, temperatures, and the weekly forecast. Simple enough. Each of those elements we can use as fields in our JavaScript to return those specific values. So there we have it. Okay, so here's the, just going back to the Service Manager, here's the weather function, the weather JavaScript that was generated from the WSDL for weather. And this is the one we're going to call functions from our custom script, which I've already created, the weather by zip script. So we can see that I've created a function get forecast for zip, and we're passing in the zip value. So right away, we're going to follow the steps that I listed earlier. We're going to create the service object. var forecast service equals new system library weather.weather. We're calling that weather library script weather function, just as we saw it. Just go back for a second and take a look at that. There we have it. Weather script name, and the weather script function, including all the methods, etc. that come along with that. Easy enough. Let's go back to the custom script. Weather by zip. Now we create the request object. Var forecast request equals new system library. Once again, the weather script calling and the get city forecast by zip function, or a method within that function. So we've created the service object and we've created the request object. Now we're filling the request object with the information that defines the request. Here we go, forecast zip, set value zip. We are filling it with the definition is the zip value. Forecast zip set value zip. Now once we've completed that, scroll down here a bit. We're going to perform some error handling. We're going to get into our try, throw, catch area, which is also going to include the invocation of the service object and passing in the request object to it. Var forecast equals forecast service dot invoke forecast rec. There we're invoking the forecast rec request object. We're throwing an error if one should occur. If we catch it, we invoke the request object. Then we put in a little print statement. The forecast resp.get city forecast by zip result.state. We're pulling out the state information because that's one of the attributes of that method within the the method of the weather function JavaScript. And then we're going to return that response object instance of the response object. Just look here, get city forecast by zip state get value. We're getting the get value attribute. Okay. So we have state. Let's scroll over here a little bit if I can. Hopefully you can see this on the screen. And we're also pulling back. We're concatenating it, so we're doing a plus and calling the same function again, and we're going to get the city.getValue also from the get city forecast. So there we have it, and we're going to return the forecast. Easy enough. My mouse is going all over the place here, but anyway, we scroll down a little bit, and we're going to test our script here by calling get forecast zip function and putting in a zip code just as we did in using the SOAP UI open source tool. And it's going to call those objects just as it did in the SOAP UI. And there's the zip.value that we're passing in up there, which we're just replacing down here in this test statement. And then we're going to print out the results. So we're actually going to call the function, the function that calls the web service that pulls back the values, the current values for the weather from that service. It actually pulls back everything, all the values, the weekly forecast, but in this case we're just going to bring back the description, including the state and the city information. So let's just give that a whirl here. I'm going to save it, compile, execute, and there we have it. Sunny, California, San Diego. Successful compilation of the JavaScript function. So let's return the information as we had requested. Obviously, you can store those into variables, whatever you want, pass them into the program through format controls. We're going to look at that. Okay, so let's make some use of this script. We can test it and magically produce the weather for California. But go find part 3 of this video series where we add, we call the script the weather service from format control and button. And that'll give you a little bit more practical use and allow you to, from there, move on to play around with other web services and be somewhat productive.